Basic segmented piece that I think anybody here should be able to do in a day or less. It's a very cool little thing. It's a sugar bowl. My wife and I have, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these, and every single day there's sugar in this. Okay? So I'm going to pass this around. Now this was made from a 10 segment ring, 3 rings. That's it. What I'm going to demonstrate how easy it is to do these rings, and I want to ask you a couple of questions. Who's got a table saw? Who's got a bandsaw? Who's got a disc sander of any size? So virtually everybody here. Carrie, you got a disc sander in your breakfast nook?
I do.
All right, all right.
And a mini bandsaw.
And a bandsaw.
Mini bandsaw.
Cool. Well, this is an 11-inch bandsaw. It doesn't have to be much. I've really never done segmenting with a bandsaw, but you certainly can. If you want to do it on a table saw, it's probably a little better. But if you don't have a table saw, and a lot of people don't want to set up with jigs, I'm going to show you how really easy this intimidating process of segmenting really is. And I think anybody here is going to be able to do that. And then after I do my little cutting, then I invite anybody who wants to try this to try it. It's really very easy. Okay? So all you need is something to cut wood with. And in this case, I've set my miter fence to 15 degrees. Fairly easy. None of this 12 1/4, thousandths, 15 degrees. Everybody's got a protractor that could probably make it into 15 degrees. And even if you weren't perfect, you can still do segmented rings. And we're actually going to do a ring here. It's going to take me less than half an hour. Okay? Probably 15 minutes. Everybody thinks cutting these things takes a long time. I'm telling you, I'm going to cut these 12 pieces in about a minute. Okay, and I'll be done with it. Okay?
Hey, Wallace.
So all I've done is set this to 15 degrees.
So no matter the size of your ring, it's always...
I'm going to make it really basic. Okay? I'm going to cut a ring. The size of your ring depends on how long you want to cut each piece. Okay? And I really want to get into the mathematics, but what I did do is the plans for making that are right here. So if you want to try this, I printed like 20 of these. It'll tell you how long to cut every one of these segments. Okay? All it is. And all the other information on this sheet is simply how thick a board you need. So you've got 2 dimensions. You got height and you got width. So if you want your segments to be, let's say, 1/2 inch tall, you're going to need at least 1/2 inch wood height. Okay? So there's the math that goes into, well, how wide a board I need, but that depends on how much your curvature is. I'm going to make it really simple. The dimensions on the boards you're going to need, and there's just 2 dimensions, are right there on the sheet. Thank you, sir. So you need your fence, and you need some kind of stop device. So can everybody see how this is set up? Just a block of wood onto a stationary thing, and this is my stop. Okay? And all I need to do is cut this piece and set the distance right there. Okay? I'll do it when I get to real. But I want you to be able to see it. So that's just my stop. So I know I move my piece to here, and then I cut. Okay? So that's as simple as it is. You cut a piece, and you go, okay, what's the length of that piece? Take your calipers out, figure out how long, see if it matches that, make the adjustment. Everybody here is a woodworker. We can all figure out how to get that piece of wood to be the right length. Doesn't require rocket science.
Sure.
Okay?
Don't look at me when you say.
Okay. Start by making my first cut to get the angle I want. Flip it over. Okay? Cut, flip, cut, flip, cut, flip, cut, flip 12 times.
180?
Yeah, flip all the way over.
Okay.
That little piece went right down the throat there. See if I can dig him out. I guess I will turn the saw off. Ready? Done.
Dun 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 dun.
Anybody intimidated
Do you
yet?
think you
Feel like
keep track
Vanna-
of the grain or
Vanna
anything?
White.
I don't keep track of the grain. I feel that the more random it is, the better it is. Because even if you kept track of the grain, at some point, it's going to be way off, right? You're going to get around the ring and go, oh, this falls pretty well up until there. Me, I just want it to be completely random. Okay? So these are pretty rough because I cut them out on a fairly rough saw. If I cut these out on a table saw, they'd be pretty damn smooth. Okay? So one way or the other, I use a work sharp. A lot of people use a disc sander, and I use a disc sander sometimes too. But all we really want to do is smooth out the end. I don't want to reset the angle. I know a lot of segmenting demos, that's what they do. They now that you've done all the work to get this perfect, now they turn around and go, now we're going to redo it on a disc sander, and they're going to cut it to a new angle. I go, it's pointless, okay? All I want to do is make a nice smooth thing so when I butt two pieces of glue together, it's a good fit, okay? So I will turn on my little work sharp, and I will do this. Let's see if I get in my pattern. Here we go. All I'm really doing is knocking all the little chaffs off.
One, two, drop it.
It's a 4. Yeah, 1, 2, drop it. Yeah. Okay.
So you're not
Okay.
doing the face you cut, Craig.
Right. I'm not even doing the faces right now. I'm just knocking off the extra little pieces so when I put them together, they don't have chaff between them. Okay. That's all I have to do if I do it on the table saw. Here, because this is a rough saw, I'm going to actually have to do the surfaces. Okay? And if I take my time, I'll do a pretty good job, but I don't want to change the angle. Okay?
What's your grit?
I think this is like an 80 grit thing. On the back side, I have like a 400 grit. Okay? So these discs, you know how these discs work, right? It's a glass disc, 5-inch or so. You put one side is high grit, one side's a low grit. Flip it over. I use this for sharpening my tools. I don't use a grinding wheel. So I know it's like watching paint dry. But you guys watch people with lathe tools all the time at these demos, so I'm going to just do these 12 here.
We'll just keep the patter up.
I'll pass those around. There you go. Just make sure I get them all back because we're going to glue them together in a couple of minutes. Like I said, if I did this on a table saw, I wouldn't even do the faces because they don't need it. I might just touch it up a little bit, but that's it.
So even though you're going to come back later
You can stop
and
passing them around.
What's that?
You can stop passing them around.
if say you do that, you cut clean edges on your table saw, then why is there a need to sand if you're going to like?
It's
once you
pretty
put your
clean,
ring
it's not-
together, you can set the whole thing down on a piece of glass, right? And
What's that?
once the ring is assembled,
Well, that's a
you're going to
different step.
sand it, right?
That's a different step. That's not this face. That's the face between rings. What I'm doing now is I'm facing the pieces
Inside and the outside.
of the one ring. What I was describing to you earlier is once you have the ring mounted onto your piece, how do you get the next ring on? Okay? So you want to make sure it's not this face. It's not this face, it's this face.
Right.
Okay?
Well, that's why I was wondering if it makes the sanding redundant, because you're going to
Nope,
turn the
different
edges
face.
along.
Because once I glue these together, they're not going to be the fat top of this or the bottom is not going to be good enough. You're going to have to sand the bottom before you know. Every step has to be smooth enough. All right, I only got 3 more of these, so hang on there.
But you're going to turn the outside and the inside off.
Yes.
So really, sanding those doesn't really.
You know, as I've said, all I'm trying to do is remove the chaff
Okay.
so that I could put these two pieces together without having some little piece of wood in between causing the pieces to separate in the gluing process and create an open joint. Okay?
If you don't have a perfect 15 degrees, you're going to end up with some...
I'm going to show you what you're going to do. Exactly right. Exactly right. So, my simple process, you're going to see this simple process. Even if I was off a little bit, I'm not too concerned because I'm going to glue these pieces into a half ring and I'm going to correct it to half ring. Okay? So, worst case scenario, you know, one of these on the outside is going to be a little bit smaller than the other. It's not going to usually, unless you're doing some really, really precision bricklaying thing where you got to the 2 rows and each has to be exactly the same. That's really the only time that matters.
Just in case you need this.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to switch over here, Pete. And about this time, I get my Yes, thank you. So sometimes I'm using different color wood. Sometimes I'm using, you know, let's say an 18 segment ring, which means I have 9 on each side. I want to make sure when I do 9 on each side that I don't do all pairs because I'm going to have a problem. Okay, so I usually like to lay it out. I love, you know, when I was a kid, I played with blocks. Dad had block sets and Tinker toys and all that good stuff. So I love to play with my little stuff there. Okay, Tight Bond 2, my favorite glue. That's what I use for segmenting. Put the glob on there. Hold the left side. Wiggle the right side. Rub fit. That's done. Anybody intimidated yet? Now, I always go for the back corner, okay? I always go for this corner to be even. Because if you don't get these even, you're exacerbating the circle, okay? So you always want to try to get those 2 pieces to be even. Not the inside. Some people, you know, sometimes you're using 2 different pieces of wood and you milled them a little bit different. So the maple is a little bit thicker this way than the walnut. It's the outside that matters. Okay? Outside piece matters.
You don't have to hold them together for any length of time.
Tight Bond 2, baby. Tight Bond 2.
How many times do you freeze your TV program?
Rub it together and start to pass right up.
You can watch and glue it.
I'm telling you, you probably couldn't get this apart. Yeah, it's quick. It's quick enough.
What's that, C80?
No, this is Tight Bond 2. It's yellow aliphatic. Is that how they say that? Aliphatic glue? It's not.
What's the advantage of 2 over 1? This
One takes about a half an hour.
says more open time.
I think you give more open time, and I don't know that there's anything else. I know I think 3 is more waterproof.
Yeah, it is.
Is that,
Three
is
waterproof.
waterproof.
It's actually slower.
It's slower.
It's the slowest set of
Yeah,
three.
I think 1 is just.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got on Tight Bond 2, and I've never had a failure.
Yeah.
I've never had a joint fail.
2 is water resistant.
Right. I mean, if you get this thing warm, if you get yellow aliphatic glue hot or warm and wet, it'll eventually fail.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's I don't live in a sauna. What?
No putting
That's right. Yeah. So
3 also is a slightly different color.
is a little.
It's
Is it?
brownish rather than yellowish.
Honestly, I've never bought a bottle of it.
Just sugar.
And my open segmented stuff is, you don't put water in. I gotta tell you.
Well, you could, but
It don't hold water. Okay.
You don't have to worry about
Okay.
What you put in is holy water.
Holy water. That you can put in there. What's that? One strip of.
When you put the glue on.
Yeah, I just shove some on there. I expect glue. I expect squeeze out. I want a good joint, and so I want glue on the entire surface. So I don't mind putting a little extra. Okay.
Dye it,
Can I dye it?
dye the glue.
Dye the glue, if you like. Sure. Why not?
You get a hair, if you deliberately want a hairline accent, get it.
Yeah, but you got to be, you got to be sure. you got to be sure you're going to see it. So some you might not.
If you roll the edge on
I mean, if I wanted a real accent, I would put a veneer. Yeah, what I would do on what I would do with that is I have a veneer sheet, and I the first thing I would do is I would glue this piece down to the veneer sheet, okay, and let it dry, and then I would cut it out, and I would face it, and then I would glue it onto the next piece. It creates an extra step, but that's perfectly right. I've actually cut pieces at an angle, put another block of wood in there, faced it, and glued that to something to create like a little triangle at the corner of pieces. So I've done that too. It's kind of a Navajo Indian basket idea. Okay, so now I'm going to take the 2s and I'm going to make them into 4s. Okay. Anybody intimidated yet? Anything I've done here nobody else can do? I'm just telling you. I expect
give us a demo sometime on feature rings.
that's much more involved.
Captive ring.
That's kind of like figure it out every time. You don't know what you're going to have to do. Okay?
What did you call it?
Feature ring. So you know what feature ring is like. Okay, so
Floyd.
Floyd's got one on that. Yeah, he's got one on that. So yeah, Floyd can show you that. I've done multiple feature rings on one vessel. It's all
And
there.
that's the accent part, like in a shower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Feature rings. That's usually making a whole bunch of cuts and smooth pieces and everything else. And yeah, it's a feature ring.
I don't think it's on the table.
Is it not on the table anymore? Okay, so here. If you want to see what a feature ring looks like, my batteries are low, but they're still there. Okay, so this is a pot I made. It's got these red Indian feather things. There's 12 of them all the way around. Okay, that's a feature ring. That's one style of feature ring. Sky's the limit, obviously. Here's where's the other one? Okay, here's another example of a feature ring right there in the middle.
Watch a lot of TV.
Yeah, so there's a feature ring. Yeah, it's all that.
Oh, the whole thing in the middle.
That whole thing in the middle, right?
Feature ring.
And there's actually one at the rim, but there's also one at the lower section.
Being
Okay.
showcased on the piece.
Okay, and then I have a really classic piece here. I can't find it. Yeah, you can whatever you can figure out. Shoot, I can't find it. Okay, well, I must have removed it. Okay.
Turn off your phone, your battery's going to die.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I got one more piece to glue together. Okay.
It's so funny, in carpentry you have to get that glue off immediately.
Nope. Doesn't matter. Don't matter here. Okay, so now I have a ring. I have a second one, so I got to give it a minute or two.
Oh, so they don't fit flat.
No, they're not perfect.
No starches.
I did this like with lightning speed. You can actually see that the lengths are off. It should have been a little wider, right? This is a perfect example. Yeah. So
Roman.
the center points are not touching, right? Okay. Perfect example of how you fix your mathematical and your physical error. If you
there's
tried
a
to
way
glue
to
all
figure it
these,
out that it would actually fit flat if you had the
if I was
proper
perfect and my gluing was perfect and my physical space was perfect, everything was perfect, I get this to be right.
I'm disappointed.
Now what? Yeah. So what? One technique is you do all your pieces, you get it all perfect as best you can, you dry fit it, everything's right. Put your glue in there, and you take a band clamp around the whole thing, and you glue the whole thing together as tight as you can with it. So if you're off at all, there will be an open spot. Can't correct for it. You never see it until you're done, right? Until you take the glue off and you turn it. Now you stuck it on the other end. Now you turn it. There's the open spot.
Hi there. How are
Ah,
you?
yeah, it's talking to you, right?
Where?
Actually, I should have wadded this up, but I got more here. So you get this way, and you stick it. You clean off the bottom. You stick it up on your disc sander, and you just touch up both sides until this joint is perfect. Okay? I don't want to get any glue. I don't want to get any glue on the table. So obviously that process is very simple. Just make sure your disc, is square. Okay, 90 degrees. Okay. Okay. I want to put these two together, but you can see how far off it is, right? You can see daylight between them, right? Not very good. That's that, like cheap little fence that I brought here. Yeah, exactly that degree. So hey, so big deal, right? If I were to try to put this together with a band clamp, I'd have a giant hole, right? And that, to me, that blows the entire project. Okay? Okay. So the only way I really have to correct this is the best thing I got for a disc sander. I would not really do this way. Let's see if I can get it close. But it's going to be a bit of sanding here. Introduce error in the other direction. I'm trying to make sure these two stay fairly flat. Okay, I actually burned it a little bit, but it's cherry. It burns really easy, right? I'm just trying to correct that angle out there. I got a little bit of it corrected. The other one. As you see, glue's holding. Not very much time. Again, this would not be the way I would normally do it, but this is the only tool I have at the moment. Start to smell the cherry burn, huh?
See it.
Yeah, got smoke coming out of it. Yeah. I got about half of it, okay, for demonstration purposes, right? So now, if I were to put these two together, I'm better. I'm about halfway down, right?
So how would
I'm correcting for it. You can obviously see what I'm doing. I'm correcting for the gap.
will the points stick out different?
No, I've seen that where sometimes one ring is a little larger in diameter than the other ring, but it gets turned away. As long as you're using enough wood this way to make your wall thickness, it's not a problem. Okay.
Make sure you don't have any burn marks on your wood.
Yeah, you don't want to have burn marks because you will see that.
Black line.
All of a sudden you have a black line. Go, what happened there? And it's a burn mark. In this case, obviously I'm moving too fast.
Question for you, Craig. When I was judging up there and I was looking at all the different segmented pieces and they were feeling some, even with a lacquer finish on them, they were feeling a little uneven. And the people that made them said that happens all the time. Everything adjusts. Even if you have perfect cuts, that they still kind of move. No?
Shouldn't move. Shouldn't move. You can see the glue is holding. I mean, I haven't broken this thing up. Now I got about 3/4 of that one. Let's do a little bit more on this. And we'll glue this together. I want to have enough glue surface there so if somebody tries to break it apart, they can't. asked somebody whether they have, I asked Steve whether he's got like a little one of those desktop 6-inch disc sanders, you know, the real portable ones. Nobody had one, so.
Because you're only supposed to talk.
Well, you know, I'm sure other people do, but I just didn't have one. It's not in my tool set. Okay, because it's warm, it will even set up faster, which is fine. Okay, and just like this, and sometimes I'll stick a rubber band around the whole thing. Yeah, it's no big deal, right? Now we made a ring. That's it. Everybody here can do this. Okay? Even Kim. So
I'm gonna try it.
well, I'll sit around and talk for just a minute or two more. Okay. So the deal here is simply you make a ring. So let's say you start your piece with a piece of maple, like the sugar bowl. Okay, solid piece of maple. Turn it about round, the diameter you want it to be. Face it. You know what I mean by face it. Lots of techniques. Turn it with a tool, but also hit it with a sanding block so you know that that face is perfect. Because I have more trouble getting that face perfect and then putting the next piece on it without getting a vertical, a horizontal line in my project. I don't think I ever get gaps here. I always get my gaps between my rows. So I know I have to be extra careful to make sure both sides are perfect. Okay? So I'll take this ring and I'll put it on my disc sander. I'll smooth off this side. That's a lot of glue. And then bring in paper towels. But I would face this, right? This will be perfect. I can draw lines with pencils around here to make sure that when I do this, all the lines disappear, so I know it's flat. So that's a test, right? Kind of get the idea. Yeah, the pencil I showed it to you.
Like I can see a gap on this side.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, yes, I mean, this is really rough, and I would have to use something stronger than this sandpaper. But I would want this to be perfectly flat. This doesn't do a great job because it's all circular. Okay? So anyway, this would be faced. So I'd have a piece faced, I'd have this piece faced, I glue it up on either side, I center it, push it up against there, hold it up against there for, you saw how long I hold it, right? It glues.
What if it's not parallel?
How can it not be parallel?
When you set in both sides.
Who cares? The top of this is going to get faced again, right? If I have a ring here, and it's on my lathe, and I glue this here, and that's flat, then I'm going to turn this flat. So if I was a little off, that's it.
Yeah, if it's on the leg. But
Yeah, because obviously you're right. This is never going to be perfectly parallel. One piece is high, one piece is low. Okay? But this is going to get turned down to the thickness I want it to. I would start, if I wanted all my rings to be 1/2 inch, I would use 3/4 material. Give me plenty of room. I would face it down to, I would measure it down here to 1/2 inch, and I face it, and I add my next ring, and I stack.
what I meant, it was just sanded.
Yeah, if it's sanded, this is going to end up, if I sand this right, this is going to end up perfectly flat all the way around. On one side. On one side. That's the one that's going to go on to the project that's already on the lathe. Okay? Okay? It's getting there. A little bit there.
Now, normally the bottom, do you use a segmented bottom or a solid bottom?
Well, I generally start at the bottom. Not necessarily, because some of my projects I have to do in 2 pieces top, you know, so if my sugar bowl was on my chuck here, and I want to go from the bottom, then the first piece would be on the bottom. But let's say I was going to, it's a big thing, and I can't do the whole thing on one, and then I start on the top, okay, so I can put that on the chuck, and I have to work my way to the middle. So, either whatever side, you know, you just start from the chuck side and you add more. You know, rings in any direction. So did everybody get a chance to see how this was constructed?
So you started with this on the
Yeah,
chuck? the
I started with that on the
solid
chuck, right.
piece,
In this
And then you
case,
mounted your rings?
that's right. So I faced the bottom. I added the first ring, and I kept going and kept going. You know, I mean, there's only 3 rings, and in this case, I did a little bit fancy. I put a piece of veneer in between. So I found some brown veneer, walnut veneer. I put that on. You know, I think I put the chuck with the piece down on the bench. So and I put glue on it, and I put the veneer on the table, and I went like this. And I put weight on it, and I glued it, and then I cut it out around the outside, put it back on my chuck, turned away the extra veneer, stick the next ring on it.
Yeah, you make it sound so
And
easy.
I make it sound so hard. Right. It just takes time. That's the only difference. Engineering wise, everybody here has done woodworking. Figure out how to do this. Okay? Sorry? Yes. Yes. And as a matter of fact, when I get a really large thing, I will have a chuck on both. And I'll put the chuck on the tailstock. I got a little jig for that. And a chuck on the headstock. And I'll put the two together. And I'll glue it, band clamp it so that it's symmetric, you know. And I got chucks on both sides, and I can spin it. And I turn it. So I got a little revolving center on the backside with one of these little faceplate things, and I mounted a piece of wood and shoved my chuck on it. It's not accurate for turning, but it's accurate for holding. But that's all the little things we create to do all the things we want to do. Well, it's still a little bit of gap over there, but most of the rest is. But that's the idea. So that's how you make a ring, and you stack rings, and you change colors on rings, and you do funky things on rings. And, this is a 12. This is a simple ring. It's a 12. It's a little oval. I don't know if you can see that because I had to take away 1/8 of an inch of each side, probably. But that's okay. I left enough wall thickness for. Yeah, I can turn it around.
Is there a formula? Like I say, I want a 5-inch diameter ring.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a formula to figure out how long each segment needs to be?
2 pi r.
Yeah, some math guys can figure that out. But I'll tell you how I printed this.
Past presentations
I
you gave out
spent I spent the $30 on a software program that did this calculation for me. So I designed it on a screen, and I make all the nice, pretty shapes and all that other stuff and sizes, all that stuff, and then I print this cutting summary. But there is a mathematical formula for doing that.
Whatever your diameter is, multiply times pi. That's the number. That's the circumference. Divide that by the number of segments. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And pi
But honestly,
pi is 3.14.
talk to the math major over here. He can tell you that too.
Just draw a picture.
Yeah.
It's 3.14.
It's an easy way to do it. Measure
Or
the
go get
segments.
a piece of solid wood.
Just draw it, measure the pieces. It's the
Just
easiest way to
multiply
do
the
it.
diameter by 3.14
Okay.
and
Right.
divide by the number of segments.
The other way to do it is to draw it out.
Well, yeah, you have to draw it out, and then if you drew the circle.
Do a compass.
But understand,
draw your
if you
lines.
drew the circle, you have to draw the circle kind of below the edge, and then you'd have to figure out what the little distance is. You could do it, okay? So, but yeah, you could. There's some books out there that have the charts in the back. This is a 12-segment ring. I got anything from 4 to 40.
So diameter times pi divided by the number of rings.
Segments.
Right. So I could tell you the angles are easier for me. 360 divided by the number of pieces.
360 divided by
Yeah, that's easier.
If you have graph paper,
Yeah.
that really helps later.
Yeah, you should always start one of these projects by drawing the shape you want on graph paper, and then figuring out what your, how many notches there are in graph paper. I think that's essential. Okay, or unless you can do it in a computer program. Okay, you could do the same thing. I think what was the name of the program? I got it a long time ago.
probably a ton of them out there.
Yeah, there's more than one. I think I paid like $30 for it.
Because I bought the same thing. There's a link on our site for that.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Has anybody ever found one that works on Macintosh?
Is there any, what grit sandpaper should they use?
Okay, so when I'm facing, I use like an 80 grit paper. Okay, so I don't want
Because
to.
you really don't, you don't want it so smooth that the glue doesn't have something to bond to. Even though wood glue absorbs
Pretty
into
good,
the
yeah. I usually do about 80 grit paper to get it flat.
Okay.
And I probably have like 120 on the other side to smooth it off. But that's it. You certainly wouldn't, there's no need to go beyond that. Yeah, I think that's about what it is. Because, if you start with 120, you're just going to burn the paper. You're going to load it up with glue. It's too fine to, otherwise you don't last very long. So that's the basic construction technique of the simple sugar bowl. So I expect to see a bunch of sugar bowls next week.
I got another question.
Put that on the website?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I like I said, I brought about 20 of them today. I didn't think that was going to be enough. And you know what? If you're kind enough to send me, put your email on the back side, I'll send you directly.
That's mine.
Somebody's.
Yeah, there's no record.
Do I have a sheet? Okay. Well, we definitely put it up on the website. Sorry. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's the.
Take mine.
You can have this.
So,
Okay.
Craig, if your next ring, does it need to be, if it's going to be smaller, does it be half as much, 2/3 as much?
Well, let's say this is
if
the
you're gonna
first
be
ring and you're
over
getting
around-
bigger. Well, what you want to do is you're gonna need to make your pieces longer.
Right.
Okay, and you want to create enough overlap because wherever there's an overlap, the next ring, you're going to be turning, this right, and you got to leave yourself enough
So you
space
have a-
between them. Otherwise, your wall thickness is going to be the minimal gap, and that's only if you're perfect.
So you need to leave yourself
Yeah,
more than your
I
wall
personally,
thickness.
even if this says this thing says the board width is 39/64. Round it up. Round it up. Okay, I wouldn't cut these all the way down. Oftentimes, I'm cutting 3 or 4 rings at the same time, and each one has a different board width, and so I just cut my wood to a bit larger than the largest, and I always cut away wood. I cannot put wood back, and we're not usually talking about very much.
So you're talking
So the
about
more
the thickness.
slope there
You're talking
is-
about the thickness of this original board here.
Right.
the
So
next one's gonna be
remember, you got the height, which is the height of the ring. You got the height of the ring, right? So you got the height, which is the thickness this direction, but the depth this way is going to determine how thick your wall thickness is.
So that's going to change on the next ring.
Yeah. Not only is it going to change on the next ring, but you'll notice when you do this, if you have a big curve like this, you got to get a much wider piece of wood because on the bottom of that, it's got to be here. The top of it's got to be there. So you're going to need a bigger, wider piece of wood for the higher curve. When you get up into the middle where it's vertical, you don't need as much thickness. But these programs all do that for you. I know what the inside and the outside diameter of the wood is, and it figures out how wide a board you need to achieve that. And then you go overboard. You round up because, God forbid your ring is a little oval. Okay? And in the narrow place where it's a little thinner, you don't have as much room to work. Okay? So you're cutting away a lot of that and you're coming closer to the outside. In the other places, you might be coming closer to the inside. So the point is, give yourself a little room, cut your boards a little wide. Height-wise doesn't much matter. It makes it a little easier if they're all the same, because when you're turning it, you're not hitting low spots and high spots, okay? But it's doable. It's certainly doable. It's just a little rougher, on the tools and yourself. So that's the secret. So everybody at least make some rings and bring them in next time. We can talk about how to stack them next time.
Your homework.
But if you can't figure that out, throw it on the chuck, throw a piece of maple on the chuck, turn it around, Flatten it out, stick a ring on there. Everybody in this room can do this. I guarantee it. It is not a scary thing. If I could do it here in half an hour or less, you can all do it.
Thank you for that, Craig.
Even Steve. Even Steve.
I can do it anyway.